I realized that the disappointment and the hardships we're going to have to happen to lead to the better and more exciting stuff. Melissa Gilbert begged Michael Landon to change the scripts of Little House on the Prairie, but America wanted romance, and she was forced to deliver. At 15, she'd never been kissed. At 23, Dean Butler knew it was wrong. Yet, they filmed scene after scene while 100 crew members watched. Her mother stood crying in the shadows. Viewers wrote angry letters. Now both stars are finally admitting what everyone suspected, but no one would say. The truth about their on-screen relationship is darker than anyone imagined. Melissa Gilbert's life began with heartbreak before she even had a name. She was born on May 8, 1964 in Los Angeles. Her biological parents, Kathy Wood and David Darlington, were newly engaged and already had 3 kids, each from past marriages. Just one day after her birth, they gave her up for adoption. They said they couldn't afford to raise a 7th child. Melissa never spent a single full night with them. She was adopted immediately by actor and comedian Paul Gilbert and his wife Barbara Crane, a dancer and actress. That instant separation stayed with her forever. Years later, in her book, Prairie Tale, she confessed, "A large part of my life has been an illusion." Paul Gilbert wasn't just a father. He was her world. But that world fell apart on February 13, 1976. Melissa was only 11 when she was told that her dad had died of a stroke. It made sense. He had suffered one before. But the truth was far more painful. Paul Gilbert had died by suicide. For decades, no one told her. He had been a World War II fighter pilot who lived with constant, unbearable pain from injuries he'd sustained. The Veterans Administration was caring for him, but even they couldn't help him cope. By the time Melissa found out the truth at age 44, it shattered her. She told Oprah she was barely functioning for weeks. She ended up hiring a private investigator to learn what really happened. She needed answers. She needed to understand why the one person who saved her from being unwanted was suddenly gone. And no one had told her the truth, even though she was adopted. Melissa had show business in her blood. Her adoptive mother, Barbara Crane, was the daughter of Harry Crane, the man who created the Honeymooners and helped reinvent the Dean Martin show with the idea of celebrity roasts. Harry had written for the Oscars, the Emmys, and even the Golden Globes. He was a giant in early television, and that legacy shaped the world Melissa would grow up in. Barbara, too, had her own career in entertainment. That meant Melissa was raised in a family where TV sets, scripts, and red carpets weren't out of reach. They were part of her daily life. That showbiz energy flowed through the whole family. In 1967, Paul and Barbara adopted another child, Jonathan Gilbert. A few years later, in 1975, Barbara had a daughter named Sarah with her new husband, attorney Harold Abelies. All 3 kids, Melissa, Jonathan, and Sarah, ended up becoming TV stars. Melissa didn't just fall into fame, she earned it. Before she turned 5, she was already doing commercials. One of the most famous came in 1977 when she starred in an Alpo dog food ad with Lauren Green. Green and Gilbert had natural chemistry, and the ad featured her gushing about her dog, Fluffy, winning a blue ribbon. At just 9 years old, Melissa Gilbert stepped into a casting room filled with more than 500 hopeful girls and left with a role that would define her for life. It was early 1973, and NBC was searching nationwide for the perfect child to play Laura Les in a new pilot. When Melissa walked in and began her screen test with Michael Landon, something happened. He didn't just see a young actress, he saw his on-screen daughter. He later said there was a magic in her performance. She wasn't acting. She was Laura. And right there at the Burbank studios, her life changed forever. The funny part, Melissa had no idea who Landon was. She'd never watched Bonanza, a show that had made him a star for 14 straight years. So, when she auditioned, she didn't act nervous or try to impress him with compliments. She just played the scene. That honesty, That lack of polish was exactly what Landon had been hoping to find. She didn't see him as a celebrity. She saw him as P. And that bond, that effortless connection would become the heart of Little House on the Prairie for the next 9 years. Even the way Melissa found out she got the role felt like something out of a TV drama. One day at school, a classmate named Leslie Landon came up to her with a huge smile. Leslie, Michael Landon's real daughter, said, "My dad picked you. No phone call, no studio announcement, just two girls in a school hallway." And years later, those same two girls would be back on set. Leslie playing school teacher Ada Plum in the final seasons of the show. Melissa filmed the pilot in the summer of 1973 in the scenic hills of California. It aired the following March and pulled in over 17 million viewers. That was huge. But even after that success, she had to wait nearly a year to find out if the show would become a full series. For a kid, that kind of waiting feels like forever. But by June 1974, filming began again, and Little House on the Prairie was officially born. It would run until 1983, 9 full seasons of family, hardship, and frontier life. One moment sealed her fate. During her final audition, she had to act out a scene where Laura says goodbye to her dog. It was tough. Real tears, real pain. Landon was watching closely, and by the end, he had tears in his eyes. She moved him, and not many adult actors could do that, let alone a child. It wasn't training. It wasn't technique. It was raw emotional honesty. That day he knew she wasn't just playing Laura Less. She was her. From ages 10 to 19, Melissa wasn't just playing a character. She was growing up in front of an entire country. At its peak, the show drew more than 20 million viewers per episode. Every week, she was in America's living room. Millions watched her lose baby teeth, grow taller, go through puberty. All on camera. No child in history had ever been watched this closely for that long. It was more than just a show. It was a national event unfolding one episode at a time.